The movie opens with Mason reminiscing about his life. Lacking purpose throughout his whole life had him afraid that his life might lead to a meaningless life. But still, he did what other noble Americans do, become a lawyer.
You're one of us now.
Soon he realized that was not what he wanted.
When did you decide to stop trying? So, I folded that hand.
He joined the military and was selected into a special force team. Finally found a purpose, Mason felt content. He found love along the way and married Jenny, and they had a daughter named Casey. But one day during a mission, he lost his comrades, along with his purpose. Despite that, Mason still has a family to take care of, so as a responsible man, he succumbs to the life he once rejected himself to be, once again being a lawyer, and underpaid too. Now Mason is taking Casey to her school. Casey tells him about a boy who keeps trying to kiss her. He tells her to hit the boy in the throat if he tries again.
He tries to kiss me and stuff.
Boy tries to kiss you, you're 9.
I'm 8, Dad.
He continues to work after dropping off Casey. Mason's friend Sebastian Earle visits his office. Sebastian runs a CDI company and offers Mason a job to guard a journalist named Claire Wellington. Wellington is the only one ever invited to interview President Venegas of Paldonia. A flash of memory showed that Venegas was Mason's target back then on his mission before all went south. Mason hesitates, but Sebastian offers a lot of money, and Mason agrees. When Mason comes back home, he finds out that Jenny had to meet the principal at Casey's school. Casey got in trouble because she hit a boy who tried to kiss her, prompting Mason and Jenny to fight, adding fuel to their falling apart marriage. Jenny thinks that maybe divorce is an answer for them. Mason can't say anything. Instead, he tells her about the job.
What job is this?
Private security, easy stuff.
Jenny worries, but let Mason take the job because she thinks it might help him feel better and fix things. The next day, Mason meets journalist Claire Wellington, and after introducing himself, the two of them head directly to the airport. Claire briefs Mason on his role, which is to defend her by all means. As soon as they land, Venegas greets Claire with a kiss, while our guy Mason gets body checked by Venegas' security. When they get into Venegas' car, Mason is surprised to hear that Venegas has background checked him and is aware of his former job as Armed Forces soldier.
Mason Petit's CDI's finest. Former Army Special Forces. Petit. The little house.
Suddenly, in the middle of a bridge, the security car in front of them explodes and they are ambushed by rebels who are here to assassinate Venegas. Mason runs to the crashed security car and grabs a firearm. Venegas asks to help protect their group because he realizes someone is trying to overthrow him.
Overthrow my government. And you will come with me to the capital and help me protect my people.
Mason declines. He says it's Venegas' own people who tried to assassinate him. Mason walks away with Claire in tow. They go into the forest but take a break because Claire is exhausted. Venegas finds them soon after. Mason calls Sebastian for help, and Sebastian manages to locate them and will send a helicopter. After the call, Venegas asks to borrow the phone, but Mason says no. Venegas threatens to arrest Mason for spying, but Mason threatens him back with his firearm. Claire talks to Mason, convincing him to help Venegas.
Cada vez pasas por ahí.
Singing? Dictators don't get to sing.
Really?
Venegas calls his nephew George, who is surprised to learn that Venegas is still alive. Venegas is aware that his nephew is the mastermind behind the coup and assures him that he is still well. Claire is surprised to find that Venegas' nephew is working with the rebels, but Venegas reasons that Jorge is currently being exploited by the rebels because he is a moron.
Oh, the rebels also think that he's an idiot.
Venegas begs them to help him protect his people, but again, Mason walks away. Claire follows Mason, leaving Venegas alone. Claire negotiates with Mason to assist Venegas so she can report everything, but Mason is determined not to assist Venegas. Claire is frustrated as to why Mason seems to be cross with Venegas when suddenly Mason spots a chopper above them. He sees two gunmen bolt out of it. Mason realizes that they aren't coming to help them. The gunmen chase them while the chopper fires at them as they flee. They come to a halt in the clearing near a fallen tree. Mason positions a sniper to await the helicopter. Meanwhile, Claire stands back with iPhone in hand and records everything that happens. Mason successfully hit the pilot and they flee into the woods just as the chopper crashes. Claire keeps running until she realizes she has lost Mason. She screams for Mason, but is confronted by the two gunmen. She hides behind a tree and clutches a tree branch, silently waiting for one of the rebels to approach her hideout. Mason appears unexpectedly and engages in combat with the rebel. Seeing Mason struggle, Claire offers her help. The rebel is no longer breathing air. Claire emerges from her hideout as Mason stands facing Claire when suddenly a rebel smacks him on the head. Venegas appears and shoots the rebel.
I'm here.
On the other hand, Jorge and his crew are inspecting the wreck chopper when a car pulls up. Colonel Jan has arrived to warn Jorge about his failure to assassinate Venegas. Colonel Jan shoots one of Jorge's soldiers, and Jorge promises to make amends. Back to Mason and friends, who are resting by the river to relax. Claire approaches Mason. She asks about Mason's expedition when he served in the army. Mason tells Claire about the plane crash in the same area and how he lost his comrades. After a while, Venegas comes up with a plan. He leads Mason and Claire to a village and introduces them to the village people, Chief and Pino, the village chief's son-in-law. The three of them decide to stay in the village till the next day. Claire thinks now is the perfect moment to conduct an exclusive interview. During the conversation, they discuss Venegas's attempted assassination, and the president explains why he believes that this is a corporate-backed coup, meaning companies are behind the attempt. These companies have discovered lanthanides in Paldonia, rare earth metals that are the core components for new technology, and businesses want to exploit this new resource, but Venegas refused them, which is why they want him dead. Mason, who has been filming the interview, slowly realizes that Venegas isn't the person he initially thought.
Give me up alone now!
The next morning, Mason wakes Claire up and tells her she needs to get ready since they're going to leave the village. Claire is hesitant since she wants to learn more about Paldonia's situation. Mason disagrees, thinking Claire has enough materials for her reports.
That's a negative. You got your exclusive, we get you to safety, you break your story.
Venegas enters the room. He encourages Mason to stay and unravel the truth before indicating that he knows the real reason why Mason was chosen to be sent here. Mason calls Sebastian, demanding his answer. Sebastian informs him that he has been told to dispatch a man to kill Venegas. Sebastian picks Mason because he assumed Mason would also want to kill Venegas, since his fallen comrades were the casualties of Venegas's actions. When later Jorge, who learns about this plan, intercepts Sebastian's plan with a coup. Mason hangs up the call without saying anything. He calls Jenny on his home phone and conveys his gratitude and affection to Jenny, making the wife worry. She requests that he return home in one piece.
I just wanted to say thank you for sticking with me through all this, and that I love you very much.
Mason has made up his mind. He walks past Claire and Venegas. He takes his belongings and tells Claire that they are leaving without Venegas. Suddenly, Colonel Jan and his troops arrive. Mason and Claire flee, but Venegas follows them behind. The trio notices the rebels attacking the village. Seeing this, Venegas comes out of hiding. He's about to face the rebels. Meanwhile, Claire persuades Mason to assist Venegas because Colonel Jan will surely finish Venegas.
They kill him here. They kill every person in this village.
Mason's morale kicks in. He grabs Venegas with his horse and they ride away from the insurgents, living happily ever after. No! Mason and Venegas manage to flee with Claire on a horse behind. Unfortunately, Colonel Jan captures Claire and takes her hostage. Mason and Venegas spend the night in a church before meeting with Venegas's trusted acquaintance, a man named Bobby, and asking for his assistance. They decide to focus first on how to save Claire. The following morning, Mason departs after speaking with Bobby to meet with Colonel Jan while Venegas is hiding. Mason and Colonel Jan stand in the middle of a seemingly calm, open area, guns aimed at each other. One of Colonel Jan's rebels forces Claire to her knees and points a gun at her head. Colonel Jan threatens Mason with death if he does not give him Venegas. Mason calls for Venegas to come out. Then Venegas emerges with a smug look on his face, followed by a swarm of civilians who surround Colonel Jan and his troops. Defeated with people power, Colonel Jan doesn't realize when the trio silently escape using a secret passage. The trio infiltrates Venegas's office in the palace where Jorge is. While Claire is recording, Venegas speaks to Jorge, warning him that the rebels will simply dispose of him once they obtain what they want. Venegas offers to save Jorge from the rebels, and the two embrace. General Martinez barges the room. Venegas attempts a polite conversation with him, but the general pulls out a firearm and shoots Venegas. Mason grabs Claire, protecting her, while Venegas pulls out his rifle and shoots General Martinez. General Martinez is breathing air no more. Mason helps Venegas up, and he pulls the bullet from his suit as they discover Jorge has been shot. Venegas cradles Jorge and weeps as his nephew dies in his arms. Paldonian's troops storm into the room, pointing their firearms at Venegas. Venegas talks to the soldiers, assuring them that he is not the enemy and that he too wants to help his people. Colonel Jan's rebels approach the chamber, slowly standing close behind the Paldonian soldiers. As he finishes his oration, Venegas points with his eyes toward the rebels, and the Paldonian soldiers turn around, exchanging fire with the rebels. The trio hides behind a desk with Claire still filming everything. That is one hell of an iPhone. A war breaks out inside the palace, and Mason acts as a guard protecting Claire, even President Venegas. Colonel John and one of his soldiers are chasing the trio while Paldonian soldiers and the rebels continue their fights. Mason orders Venegas and Claire to walk ahead, while he stays to face Colonel John. Colonel John pins Mason down. John reveals to Mason that he was the one who killed his comrades, not Venegas. Colonel John tries to stab Mason, but Claire comes out and jabs his neck. The two then run to help Venegas and the Paldonian soldiers, who are currently outnumbered. Mason falls down and grabs a gun to shoot at the rebels. Claire and Venegas watch in awe while Claire keeps recording. Boy, look at her strong grip. Suddenly, Sebastian and his crews storm the palace. They help Mason and Paldonian soldiers to defeat the rebels. The rebels, who are outnumbered, is losing the fight. They are scrambling away. After everything, the president's palace is back at peace. With Claire's help, broadcasting the whole story from Venegas's side and Paldonia people, the whole world is now finally able to unveil the truth. Venegas expresses his gratitude to Claire and Mason for their help, especially Claire and her strong iPhone, to let everyone see what really happened. President Venegas held a press conference. He announced that from this moment, he is no longer the president, and the transition of government has been put in place until the next election. The conference is broadcast around the world, and everyone can watch it. Mason finally comes home to the arms of his beloved family. His wife and daughter greet him warmly. One day, Mason receives a text from Venegas saying he sent a gift. Mason runs to the nearest bank. He looks at the screen and smiles.
Yes!
Mason goes to his car where his wife and daughter are waiting. Mason decides he can skip work today and spend the day with his family instead. The family is happy.
I had purpose.
See? That's money power, my friend.